Good morning. Okay, let's see, where have we left off? Yeah, so this is the front end that we're looking at here currently. Now let's recap a little bit. So on what we have done is basically creating a form, and we're going to go through this form, and let's quickly look how that looks like. Let me see if I can show you that. Right, so this is basically what we have right now, and then there's a huge create new post down here that we're basically going to work with. Right, so again, we're going to talk about styling later and where this post is supposed to be, but I mean right now we're basically going to put it right here. Let me quickly see the audio channels if that's nice here. Yeah, you hear that differently than I do. Hold on. Let me see. Out like that, and then my, okay. A little bit strange. Oh, I have to check that out in the recording, how you get that, because that mixer is kind of really confusing. Really confusing to me. Hope that mixes nicely. Okay, so here's the create new post form, and so again, what we're trying to do is to basically capture this form with JavaScript and then send it over. And we said like, hey, we're going to do this like all vanilla, right? And just so that we, oops, that's not what I meant. Just so we remember what it's actually doing. Let's basically get our, oops, favicon, yeah, okay, fair enough. So let's do some kind of content here and see what's happening. You can see that the element name is what we basically post here, and we also see that, hey, hold on a second, there's an empty line as well. That's a little bit hard to grasp, but that's of course our button itself. Right, so we need a little bit of an if. Basically say if type of form element that name is not undefined and form element name is not empty. Okay, then we want to do that. So what do we want to do that then? Well, then we want to say, hey, our payload name equals the value, right? So let's take all of this out of here and see like, well, what is our payload then at the end of the day? Right, just work here step by step. And then kind of reload this here. Oh, it's apparently not what we want. That's so not what we want. Well, the first thing that we have is that that this is wrong, and that value undefined is also not really what we want, right? So let's quickly make sure that this form element is what we. Oops, oopsie. Hello. Put my log down here. So this is the form element value. I already see the issue. Okay, now we can see, okay, now we have title and content. That's exactly what we need in the backend, right? So far so good. So that means that our payload is now ready for this form. And now we have to send it out. Now we're gonna write a post, and we're gonna do that with, actually let's not be too vanilla here. We could use a fetch, but what we probably want to do here is from the start, use something that's a bit more convenient to handle. So I'm going to install, I mean, we have nothing here anyway, right? Do we have any kind of, yeah, okay. So the first thing that we're going to do is npm init to basically generate a package JSON, wherever it is. There it is, right? And oh, that changed. I'll do that later. So let's quickly go over this. So yeah, that's exactly what we want to do here. It's fine, we don't have an index.js, but we're going to take care of that later. And then we have an npm install, and I'm going to use Axios. It's a pretty popular wrapper. Okay. Now, if we want to use that in the front end, let's actually quickly look at this, right? So here's our Axios. So if you look at the dist, you see that there's an Axios JS, which is in my IDE a little bit weird. So that's the min.js that we're actually aiming for. So we somehow need to include this, right, in our. So the easiest form in our system is to say, well, isn't that what's happening in main? Right, where we basically require all of that stuff. And yeah, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that and say, okay, sure. Let's actually not a link. It's actually rather a script. So the source will be our base, and then our node modules, and then Axios, and then dist, and then let's actually quickly see again where that was. Where am I blind here? Axios, dist, and it's just Axios.min.js, right? That'll do. So let's see if that's true. If we go to post.js, we should now be able to simply make a call to Axios post. And do you remember how it works? So what we have here is we want to send it to where? To /API / what? I already forgot our endpoint. So in the controller post, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's all we need to do. And then post, and our payload will be our payload, right? Then, and the only thing that we're going to do here is log the result of that for now. Now, we'll have to see what we do about this, right? Because we want basically this new post to work regardless of content. Okay, just receive a call for something that identifies itself as outsourcing spam, which is interesting, but I think I'm going to ignore that call. Okay, so we get a 404 here on the post, as you can see. So why is that? Well, if we open up the network tab, right, let's do that. That's going to tell us a little bit more about that. So as you can see in the, here in our post, now it's sending it to localhost API post. which is not where we wanted to have it, right? Do you see how we need the PHP basics here in between for this to work? Oh, by the way, and the slash at the end, but that's something that we can fix. So how do we get the base in here? So what we have done so far is to basically say, well, okay, hold on. So our home, you know, can use particular things that it includes, and this simply includes a dumb script, right? So my post.js has basically the problem here in my assets that, well, here we don't know in which context we're running. And there are a couple of ways to basically go about this. So the easiest way is, of course, to say, hey, how about this? Will this work? And, well, in a simple context, yes, right? Because if we do that and say, okay, send that over, oh, then actually we do get a, well, we get a 200. See that? And everything is fine. But now the challenge is to say, well, but this would also show up in home, right? This would also show up in home. Now what happens now? Oh, no, I don't get the new post. See that? I can't even load the new post itself. So why is that? Well, because now we're in a different context. In our home, what we've done is also here. I mean, here we could pass it in, right? That would be easy. And say, hey, why aren't you here? And let's think about this. The only thing that we would really need in our home is to say, okay, here, the home, I can give that, right? I can give it a base. And say, well, isn't it our get.env? And then I actually forgot how it's called. Application app web root. Right, and the answer is yes, of course, that would work. So now, if we reload this, the new post loads fine regardless of where we are. Right, so that's cool. But how do we make that work for our new post? And so there are a couple ways to go about this, right? And now the question is, okay, what would be the smartest way to do it? And it's not easy to answer. I can basically tell you, let me put that right here. I can basically tell you that one of the solutions that you have is to say, well, couldn't I do the following and basically give this on a very general high level down to basically to the main. And that's probably also something that we probably want to do, right? So our main HTML reads the base, and that's always going to be there, right? So here's going to be the content, and this is going to be hard rendered, which basically means so whatever we put in here in a script tag will be there. So of course I can simply say, hey, what if we do it like this and say, hey, we're going to have a const that is going to be called application base. Actually, we're going to call it exactly the same way, app web root. That is how we called it, right? Yeah. And then say, okay, equals base. Now this looks weird, right? But if we go back to, where are we? If we actually look at this and look for, now I see what the problem is. Show it to you like this. And if we look for constant app, hello? Here. You see that? Now it's right here. Of course, we noticed that, hey, hold on a second, shouldn't there be quotes? And the answer is yes, of course there should be. Definitely. Definitely would that be super important. Just quickly see what's going on here. The other side, okay. Let me see, what are you asking? Okay, So that would be the constant web root. And now we have that everywhere, including in the new posts. So let's see if that's true. So here we have our app. No, sorry. Now we have it available in JavaScript. So it's our app web root plus. Okay. So now it should work regardless of where we are. Let's try it out. No, wrong one. Oh, come on. Let's reload that. Try this out. Right, and as you can see, it works from home like a charm. So let's go here and see. So regardless of context, works like a charm. See that? Perfect. And of course, we're just logging this. Okay, so now let's get a little bit smart. So we also basically have this that we say, well, so new post is fine and dandy, right? But how is this really going to look like? So at the moment it's a little bit terrible. What kind of design we're going for here? So let's think about how we actually want this to look like, right? So here we call this. I don't even know what we call this. But what I want to do is to say, well, let's actually create something that's a little bit easier to tackle with, right? And that should be, and I don't know Spectre too much, but I think it's columns. Oh, sorry. Columns. There we go. And in here there should be column. And actually, to be honest with you, I should look at this. Layout, flexbox grid, yeah. Okay, columns, yeah, that'll do. This should automatically flex, right? Okay. So column, and this one is a little bit smaller. Okay, so this is where my create new post is going to get in. Right there. Right, and my newest post, it's going to go right in here. Yeah. It's a bit more how I want it. Now here, I don't want it to have this added to the bottom either. So right now when I say like, okay, latest post, see that? And then here say, this is latest. What's going to happen is, oh, we don't attach it yet. What's going to happen is it's going to be all the way at the bottom. So that's what we don't really want, right? And why is that? Because I think it makes more sense if you basically see that at the top. So when we here get our, home, when we here get our post find out, right? What I basically want to do is to say like, well, can I sort something in here? And of course I could, but I'm going to actually be lazy and say I'm going to do that in PHP, right? And say, hey, there's not really a reason to do this on the SQL side. So I'm going to make my life a little bit easier and say, hey, you know what? Array reverse. See that? Now let's have a look. And here my latest post is now at the top. So there's one more thing that we need to tackle. So we're working with PHP, and now we're basically integrating JavaScript as our front-end solution here. So one of the problems that I see is to say like, well, hold on a second. If this comes back, right, then I actually want to attach it here. So add it to this whole list directly without reloading. So right now, basically, you remember that, okay, this doesn't show up anywhere, right? It simply doesn't. What I would need to do in order to do that is to reload the page, and then it's up here. But that's not really what I want to do, right? What I want to do is to directly add it to the list. Now, that's where it becomes a little bit tricky. So what's the reusability of new post is the question number one, right? So can we really be sure that this post container, this one here, is going to be always there, right? Or are we going to use new post somewhere else, and in which case we simply wouldn't have this post container available for us. And we would also have to wonder, okay, how do we use this as a template for JavaScript as well? And that's a little bit the tricky part that we will get into when we talked about security, right? But if you think about it, what's happening here now is to say, okay, so the only thing that we're really wondering about is okay, what's supposed to happen if this was successful or wasn't, right? So we don't have an error case yet. For now, I'm just going to log it. And here is basically my to-do. Right? I'm going to do it just like here. And meanwhile, I'm going to do a window location reload. Okay, so this will already work at least. So let's try this out. Okay. Right, that's there. I don't know if you saw that with the delay, but now she's reloading the whole page, which is not ideal, right? So that's something that we want to talk about, but that's okay. So the next step that we basically have is to say, okay, so what if this is not, and actually, let's basically do the following first, right? To say, ooh, okay. So the package JSON, the package JSON lock is what we want to add. And here we say integrate API front end and back end. Okay, we're going to commit that. Then what we also notice is, I know that there's a to-do item in there. What we also want to do is in our git ignore, we definitely want to add node modules. Super important. Okay, directly commit that. Okay. So far so good. Now we're going to start with a huge topic of authentication, right? And that's going to be super fun. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to push this up. And the reason for that is that I don't want to do this in this branch. So weird too. It's almost impossible to work clean on such a project, right? Because you're kind of like, well, you were just playing around. Okay, so I'm going to create a new branch now that I'm going to call authentication. Okay. Just follow the chat a little bit here. Okay. Just follow the authentication. So that's basically the next big thing is, right? So how does authentication even work? So for that, we need a couple of things. And let's maybe say, okay, let's back up. So how does, and actually this is a really interesting point. Let's close all for now. So in our models, right now we only have post. Do you see that? And what we really want to do now is to say, well, let's get to the big step of creating a user model. And I'm kind of wondering, this is such a big thing that I would like to make it its own. Yeah, I guess I'm going to stop it now for here because I want to make this its own topic. The reason for that is that's often done wrong. It's often done wrong, and even in the most simplest solutions, I mean, you gotta be careful of certain kind of things. That's why I'm actually gonna call it a day for now regarding this. So you should have the newest version now online. Feel free to ask questions. Follow the various possibilities to get in touch with me. I mean, you'll find a way. And then the next time we're going to jump into authentication. Sounds good?